Today we're diving into Master Your Time by Thibaut Meurisse, a book that speaks directly to something every human feels but rarely understands. The constant pressure of time slipping away. Think about it. Have you ever looked at the clock and wondered, where did my day go? Have you ever wished for just a few extra hours, believing that more time would finally help you catch up, stay consistent, or move closer to the life you want? Almost everyone feels this way at some point, and yet, the truth is surprising. It's not the number of hours you have that determines your success. It's how you use those hours. And this book teaches you exactly how to transform the way you experience time so you can take complete control of your days, your energy, and your future. Imagine waking up one morning feeling fully in command of your schedule. You know exactly what matters today. You feel focused, calm, and intentional. Instead of being dragged by your responsibilities, you lead your time with confidence. This vision isn't unrealistic. And it isn't reserved for a small group of disciplined people. It's possible for anyone, including you. Once you understand the psychology behind time, energy, and productivity, our time is limited, but our potential is unlimited when we learn to direct that time with purpose. Yet most of us fall into habits that drain our potential without realizing it. Think about those moments when you start watching a TV show just for a few minutes, and suddenly an entire evening disappears. Or when you plan to study, work on a project, or clean your space, but your mind keeps pulling you toward your phone, your notifications, or anything easier than the task at hand. These moments feel small, but over time, they define the quality of your life. You see, watching TV or scrolling through social media isn't inherently wrong. Entertainment is part of being human. But when these activities turn into hours of passive consumption, they quietly steal the time that could have been used to learn something new, improve your health, or take steps toward your dreams. If you had spent even half of those lost hours reading, practicing a skill, or working on your goals, your life today would already look different, more confident, more productive, more fulfilling. And that's exactly what this audiobook-style summary is here to help you achieve. As you listen, you're not just learning concepts. You're learning how to reshape your daily life, how to understand your mind, and how to take back control from distractions, procrastination, and old habits that no longer serve you. Productivity is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about knowing how to channel your energy into actions that bring meaningful results, rather than getting lost in trivial activities that feel comfortable but offer nothing in return. Productivity is deeply personal. It's not a fixed set of rules. It's a relationship between your time, your energy, and your priorities. And it begins with understanding your natural rhythm. Think about a day when you felt mentally sharp, full of energy, and ready to take on anything. Maybe it was early morning, or maybe later in the afternoon. Now think about a time when your brain felt foggy and even simple tasks felt draining. That's because your energy isn't constant. It shifts, it rises, it falls. When you learn to work in harmony with your energy instead of forcing yourself through exhaustion, your productivity skyrockets. Let's imagine a real-life example. Picture a young woman named Sarah who wakes up at 8 a.m. and immediately checks her phone. She spends 30 minutes scrolling through social media, then rushes into her tasks feeling behind and overwhelmed. Her energy peaks around mid-morning, but she uses that time responding to messages, fixing small issues, and reacting to others instead of doing what matters most. By afternoon, she feels tired, distracted, and unmotivated. She tells herself she's just not a productive person. But the truth is far simpler. She hasn't learned how to work with her energy cycle. Now imagine Sarah with a different approach. She wakes up, avoids her phone for the first hour, and spends her best mental hours working on her most important tasks. She saves low-energy tasks like organizing, messaging, or errands for later in the day. Suddenly, she accomplishes twice as much with half the stress. Not because she changed who she is, but because she changed how she uses her energy. Every person has natural energy phases. Sometimes you feel ready to solve hard problems, and sometimes your brain wants simple tasks. When you respect those phases, you stop fighting your biology and start aligning with it. And this is where your real power begins. Productivity isn't a punishment. It's a partnership with your mind and body. Procrastination, on the other hand, is the enemy of progress. But not because it makes you lazy, rather, because it makes you confused, afraid, or overwhelmed. People procrastinate when tasks feel unclear, when they don't understand why something matters, or when they fear making mistakes. If you've ever told yourself, "I'll do it later," it wasn't because you didn't want to grow. It's because your mind perceived the task as threatening, too big, too vague, too difficult, or too risky. The moment you understand that, Procrastination is a psychological reaction and not a personal flaw. Everything changes. You stop blaming yourself and start working with your mind instead of against it. Think of a student named Jason. He needs to start a project, but every time he sits down, he feels overwhelmed. Not because he's lazy, but because he doesn't know where to start. His brain freezes, so he does what feels safe. He postpones it. Days pass and the pressure increases. Finally, he breaks the project into micro steps. Choose a topic. Write one sentence, find 2 articles, write 1 paragraph. Suddenly the task feels manageable. The fear disappears, and Jason begins. Not because he suddenly became more motivated, but because he reduced the mental barrier that once held him back. The same principle applies to your life. If something feels heavy, break it into pieces. If something feels unclear, define it. If something feels intimidating, simplify your starting point. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. You don't wait for motivation to arrive. You generate it by taking the first step. Your relationship with time is shaped by your past, your future and your present, and how you think about each one determines the quality of your life. Too many people let their past limit them. They replay painful memories, failures, regrets, and moments of shame. But the past is not a prediction, it's a lesson. And your present self is wiser, stronger, and more capable than the version of you who made those mistakes. When you separate who you used to be from who you are now, you reclaim your power. When you release old guilt and forgive yourself for past mistakes, your mind becomes lighter. And when you acknowledge your past achievements, no matter how small, you build a stronger sense of self-worth. Your future, on the other hand, should inspire you, not scare you. Most people imagine worst-case scenarios and paralyze themselves with fear. But what if you imagined the best-case scenario instead? What if you saw yourself succeeding, improving, growing, and achieving what you once believed to be impossible? Visualization programs your mind. When you picture your future clearly and emotionally, your brain begins to look for opportunities, solutions, and pathways that match that image. Your future becomes something to walk toward, not hide from. But the present, this exact moment, is where transformation actually happens. The present is your canvas, your one chance to act, your opportunity to make decisions that shape your life. When you treat each day as a micro-life, a small version of your entire life, you start taking it seriously. You stop wasting hours on meaningless activities. You stop telling yourself, "I'll start tomorrow." You start realizing that everything you do today, even the small things, builds your future. Consistent action beats intense bursts every time. Someone who studies for 20 minutes daily will outperform someone who studies for 3 hours once a week. Someone who exercises lightly every day will be healthier than someone who works out intensely once a month. Someone who writes 200 words daily will finish their book faster than someone who waits for inspiration. Consistency isn't glamorous, but it's powerful, and it's available to everyone. Time becomes meaningful when you use it, intentionally, when your actions align with your goals, your values, and your desired future. When you remove the limiting belief of "I don't have time" and replace it with "I choose how I use my time," your life begins to shift. When you become aware of how you spend each day, you stop letting distractions control your life. When you prioritize high-impact tasks, your progress accelerates. When you choose passion, challenge, and growth over comfort, your potential unfolds. And when you learn to multiply your time by asking for help, learning efficiently, mastering skills, investing your resources wisely, and focusing on what matters, your opportunities expand. You stop surviving. You start thriving. You stop reacting. You start creating. You stop drifting. You start leading your life with clarity and purpose. As we move deeper into this journey of mastering your time, imagine waking up each morning with a sense of purpose instead of pressure. Imagine knowing exactly where your energy should go, instead of scattering it across distractions that never bring you closer to your goals. Life becomes clearer, smoother, almost quieter inside your mind when you learn how to direct your time intentionally. You begin to feel something powerful: control. Not control over the world, not over other people, not over circumstances, but control over yourself. And that is the strongest form of control a person can ever gain. Many people live life as if time is something happening to them. They wake up and instantly react, reacting to messages, reacting to tasks, reacting to stress, reacting to other people's demands. Their entire day becomes a chain reaction. But when you use your time meaningfully, the pattern reverses. You stop reacting and start acting. You start leading your day rather than being pulled by it. You move with intention, and this is the shift that changes your entire life trajectory. To truly use your time meaningfully, You must understand one simple truth. Meaningful action doesn't always feel comfortable. Growth rarely feels comfortable. If you wait to feel ready, you will wait forever. Most people think they need motivation to start. But in reality, action is what creates motivation. The moment you begin, even if it's just a small step, something changes inside you. Your brain switches from avoidance to engagement, and the more often you repeat this pattern, the easier it becomes to begin the next time. Consider someone who wants to learn a skill like video editing, or public speaking, or graphic design. They watch tutorials, they read articles, they plan. But they don't start. Why? Because starting feels scary. The first attempt might feel awkward, imperfect, or slow. And deep down, they fear not being good enough. But imagine if that same person gave themselves permission to create something terrible. A messy first edit, a shaky first speech, a badly designed first poster. Suddenly the pressure vanishes. And with the pressure gone, the work begins. The first attempt may be rough, but it exists. And once it exists, they can improve it. This is how meaningful time works. You create, refine, reflect, and grow every day, little by little. Life begins to feel meaningful when your daily actions match the person you want to become. When you invest your time in learning, creating, improving, practicing, and experiencing things that strengthen you, you start to feel proud of yourself. Pride is a powerful fuel. It builds confidence. And confidence builds consistency. Meaningful use of time isn't just about being productive. It's about feeling aligned with yourself, feeling that your actions matter, feeling that your minutes contribute to your identity. Think of someone who wants to transform their health. Maybe they've tried diets before. Maybe they've failed. They think they need huge changes, hours at the gym, strict meal plans, intense discipline. But meaningful time doesn't work like that. A daily 10-minute walk is meaningful. Drinking water instead of soda is meaningful. Choosing vegetables at dinner is meaningful. Doing 5 push-ups is meaningful. These tiny actions, repeated over months, create massive change. In the beginning, they seem too small to matter. But over time, they compound into visible transformation. That's what makes meaningful action so powerful. It multiplies. Your time becomes meaningful when every action is a vote for your future self. If you spend your evenings watching shows mindlessly, you are voting to stay the same. If you spend your evenings learning a skill, reading a book, or building a dream, you are voting for a new future. Each choice shapes you. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. Now imagine a young man named Carlos. He wants to become financially independent, but he feels stuck working a 9-to-5 job with little growth. Instead of complaining that he doesn't have time, he begins allocating 1 hour each evening toward learning digital marketing. Just 1 hour, not 5, not 10. Over a few weeks, he understands the basics. Over a few months, he builds real skill. Within a year, he starts freelancing. Over time, that 1 hour per day transforms into a side income. Eventually, that side income becomes his main income. His entire life changes, not because he had perfect circumstances, but because he used his time meaningfully. This is how transformation works in the real world. Slowly, quietly, daily. And that's why prioritizing what truly matters is one of the strongest time habits you can build. When you fill your day with meaningful actions, meaningless actions naturally disappear. You no longer feel the urge to waste time because your mind is occupied with purpose. Your energy shifts. Your standards rise. You look back at your day and feel proud rather than guilty. Meaningful use of time also requires honesty. You must be honest about what strengthens you and what drains you. Honest about what aligns with your goals and what distracts you. Honest about what matters long-term and what only feels good short-term. People who use their time meaningfully ask themselves questions like, will this choice matter in a year? Will this task help my future self? Will this action move me closer to the life I want? These questions create clarity, and clarity makes decision-making effortless. Another powerful part of meaningful time is understanding your strengths. When you identify what you're naturally good at, whether it's communication, analysis, creativity, leadership, organization, or problem-solving, you begin aligning your time with tasks that bring out your best self. For example, think of someone who struggles with math but excels at writing. If they pursue a path that requires heavy analytical work, every hour feels draining. But if they choose a writing-based path, their hours feel alive, creative, and fulfilling. Same amount of time, completely different emotional experience. When you align your time with your strengths, your life feels lighter. And then there's passion. Passion isn't just excitement, it's energy. It's the feeling of losing yourself in work, the feeling of being alive, the feeling that what you're doing matters deeply. When you work on tasks that reflect your passion, time flows instead of dragging. You enter a state of engagement where distractions fade. You feel connected to your work, and your work feels connected to your identity. Using your time meaningfully often means giving more space to the things that ignite you and reducing the space given to things that drain you. But meaningful time also includes challenge. Growth comes from difficulty, from stepping outside your comfort zone and trying things that stretch your abilities. When you challenge yourself intentionally, you evolve. You discover hidden strengths. You unlock new potential. You learn new skills. You build emotional resilience. You become stronger than your excuses. And every challenge you embrace becomes a chapter of your future success story. Using your time meaningfully means choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term comfort. It means saying no to distractions that steal your potential. It means organizing your life around what matters. It means being present, being intentional, being consistent, being curious, and being brave enough to change. And the truth is, you don't need more hours in your day. You just need to use your hours differently. You just need to make choices that support your highest self. Choices that reflect who you want to become, rather than who you were yesterday. When you begin to understand the true power of your time, you stop seeing it as a resource that controls you, and instead, you start seeing it as something you can shape, bend, and multiply. Multiplying your time doesn't mean creating more hours. It means increasing the impact of every hour you already have. Some people spend an entire day and achieve nothing meaningful, while others use one focused hour and change the direction of their life. The difference isn't luck or talent. It's intention, clarity, and leverage. Think about leverage for a moment. Leverage means using a small amount of effort to create a big result. It's like pushing a heavy object with a metal bar. You apply a little force, but the bar multiplies your strength. In the same way, there are certain actions that multiply the value of your time. These are called high leverage actions. When you focus on them, 1 hour feels like 3. 1 day feels like a week. 1 month feels like a year. Let's imagine a young creator named Ethan. He wants to grow his online business, but he feels overwhelmed. He spends hours editing videos manually, answering every email individually, and trying to manage everything alone. He's exhausted yet sees little growth. But then he learns the principle of multiplying his time. Instead of doing everything by himself, he begins to outsource certain repetitive tasks. He hires a video editor for basic work. He sets up automated email sequences. He uses templates for his content creation. Suddenly, the same Ethan who used to work 8 draining hours a day is now doing more in 3 focused hours. Not because he increased his personal capacity, but because he increased his leverage. Multiplying your time requires a mindset shift. You must stop believing that hard work always equals long hours. Hard work is valuable, yes, but smart work transforms your future. When you delegate small tasks, automate repetitive work, learn faster through focused systems, and invest time into mastering skills that produce long-term benefits, you begin expanding the value of each hour. Time becomes elastic. 1 hour today can save you 10 hours tomorrow. Another key part of multiplying your time is learning to say no, and doing it without guilt. A lot of your time is stolen not by distractions, but by obligations you never needed to accept in the first place. Agreeing to tasks you don't care about, saying yes to favors that exhaust you, attending events that add no value to your life. These choices drain your energy and leave you with little time for what truly matters. People often say yes because they fear disappointing others. But the more you say yes to things that don't matter, the more you say no to your own growth. When you learn the art of saying no with kindness and confidence, you gain back hours, days, sometimes even years of your life. Real-life success is built on intentional refusal. Think of someone like Maya, who used to agree to every request her friends made. She helped them move, babysat their kids, attended every social event, answered calls instantly, and responded to every message the minute it came. She felt needed, but she also felt drained. Then one day, she realized she wasn't moving forward in her own life. She had dreams she never pursued, dreams she postponed for years, because she was always busy helping others. When she finally started saying no, not harshly but honestly, her time opened up. She began learning skills, applying for better jobs, investing in her personal growth, and putting herself first. A year later, her life looked completely different, not because she worked harder, but because she protected her time. Multiplying your time also means understanding the compounding effect of learning. Every minute you spend learning, a skill that benefits your future, is a minute invested with massive returns. For example, if you spend a month learning how to code, design, market, or negotiate, those skills will save you hundreds of hours in the future and open doors to incomparably better opportunities. Learning is one of the highest leverage uses of your time. It gives you tools that last for years. It increases your income, your confidence, and your freedom. So when you study intentionally, you're not just learning, you're multiplying your future hours. Another powerful element of multiplying time is building systems. A system is a repeatable process that makes your life easier. For example, having a morning routine reduces decision fatigue and helps you start your day with clarity. Creating a weekly planning system stops you from drifting and helps you stay aligned with your goals. Using templates in your work reduces repetitive tasks. Organizing your digital files saves you hours of searching. Systems transform chaos into order and give you more mental and emotional bandwidth. Once you build a system, you save time every single day. Now, let's talk about something deeper: the emotional side of time. Many people waste time not because they're irresponsible, but because they're emotionally exhausted. When your mind is cluttered, overwhelmed, or anxious, productivity becomes nearly impossible. Emotional clarity is a hidden multiplier of time. When you take care of your mental well-being, sleeping well, exercising, meditating, journaling, talking to someone you trust, your focus increases, your decisions become sharper, and your work becomes more efficient. A calm mind finishes tasks 10 times faster than a stressed mind. So multiplying your time often begins with multiplying your peace. Another powerful part of this journey is recognizing how environment shapes time. If you surround yourself with people who lack ambition, who procrastinate, who complain, who settle for mediocrity, you slowly adopt their habits without realizing it. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. But when you surround yourself with people who are driven, disciplined, and focused, your standards rise automatically. Their energy influences yours. Their pace becomes your pace. Time becomes more valuable when you surround yourself with people who value their time. Let's imagine someone named Jacob, who wants to start a business, but hangs out daily with friends who mock ambition and prefer drinking, gossiping, or playing games all night. Jacob feels guilty breaking away because he fears losing friendships. But deep down, he knows these habits are holding him back. When he slowly distances himself and starts spending time with creators, entrepreneurs, and self-improving individuals, something shifts. He starts thinking bigger. He starts working smarter. He starts valuing his hours. The same person, different environment, completely different life outcome. And finally, multiplying your time requires clarity about your purpose. When you know why something matters, you naturally work faster, stronger, and more consistently. Purpose eliminates procrastination. Purpose creates direction. Purpose gives meaning to effort. You stop wasting time because you feel connected to your future. Your goals no longer feel like chores. They feel like missions. And missions don't get delayed, they get fulfilled. When you combine all of these strategies, leverage, learning, systems, boundaries, emotional clarity, and purpose, your time expands, not physically, but practically. You begin achieving more with less effort. You feel lighter, sharper, more capable. You start experiencing moments where work feels effortless, where progress feels natural, where your growth becomes visible. This is the reward of mastering your time. You build a life where your actions matter, where your minutes mean something, where your days move you closer to the person you want to become. When you finally begin living with this kind of clarity, something remarkable happens inside you. You stop feeling rushed. You stop feeling overwhelmed. You stop feeling like life is something happening outside your control. Instead, you move through your days with a kind of quiet confidence, a steady inner rhythm that guides your decisions. You become someone who uses time with intention, someone who respects their own potential, someone who moves with purpose instead of pressure. And in that shift, your life begins to transform in ways that feel almost effortless. But one of the most extraordinary parts of mastering your time is discovering just how much emotional energy you have been wasting without realizing it. When your relationship with time is unhealthy, you're constantly battling guilt. Guilt for not starting, guilt for not finishing, guilt for not being consistent, guilt for procrastinating, guilt for wasting hours you'll never get back. This guilt drains your motivation, burdens your mind, and makes even simple tasks feel harder than they are. But the moment you start honoring your time, guilt evaporates. You no longer feel bad about delays because delays become rare. You no longer feel ashamed of wasted hours because wasted hours disappear. You begin experiencing each day as an opportunity, not a burden. And that emotional relief alone changes the quality of your entire life. Think about how freeing it would feel to go to bed each night knowing you used your day well. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but intentionally. You made progress. You moved forward. You honored your commitments to yourself. That feeling, the feeling of self-respect, is worth more than any productivity hack or motivational quote. It gives you momentum. It gives you pride. It gives you identity. And once you feel it, you start chasing it every day. This is why people who master their time often grow rapidly in other areas of life. They become more disciplined with their health, more structured with their finances, more intentional with their relationships, more selective with their environment. Time mastery spills into everything because it changes how you see yourself. When you realize you're someone who can rely on yourself, someone who can decide, act, follow through, and finish, you unlock a level of self-trust that becomes your foundation. You stop doubting your abilities. You stop delaying your dreams. You stop letting fear decide your future. You begin stepping into your potential one consistent action at a time. One powerful shift that happens along the way is your relationship with discomfort. Most people run from discomfort. They avoid hard conversations, difficult tasks, challenging goals, intimidating opportunities. But when you master your time, you start seeing discomfort differently. You begin to embrace it. You begin recognizing that discomfort is usually a sign of growth, not danger. It's the doorway to the next version of yourself. And the more often you walk through that doorway, the easier it becomes. What once felt terrifying becomes normal. What once seemed impossible feels manageable. What once drained you begins to energize you. Discomfort becomes a teacher rather than an enemy. Imagine someone named Lily who always wanted to start her own baking business. She loved creating new recipes, watching cooking shows, experimenting in the kitchen. But the idea of selling her baked goods felt terrifying. What if people didn't like them? What if she failed? What if she wasn't as good as she thought? These fears stopped her for years. But when she began mastering her time, something changed. She started dedicating small pockets of her day to improving her craft. She created a system. She practiced consistently. She studied marketing. She took small steps, posting her pastries online, taking tiny orders, delivering to friends and coworkers. Over time, her confidence grew. What once felt impossible became normal. Her fear shrank as her skills expanded. Today, Lily runs a thriving small business, all because she learned to face discomfort in small, manageable doses. This is the hidden power of using your time wisely. It transforms your identity from someone who dreams into someone who does. Your dreams stop living only in your mind. They begin taking shape in your actions, your habits, your routines, your decisions. You stop waiting for the right moment. You start creating it. Another powerful transformation that happens is clarity. When you don't manage your time, everything feels urgent. Everything feels important. Everything feels stressful. Your mind becomes cluttered with dozens of tasks, responsibilities, and unfinished goals. You feel like you're constantly juggling too much and dropping too many things. But when you master your time, your priorities become crystal clear. You start asking yourself, what truly matters today? What impact will this action have on my future? Is this worth my energy? And when you ask the right questions, you begin making the right choices. Your days become smoother. Your mind becomes clearer. Even your emotions stabilize. Because clarity is calming, it removes confusion, reduces anxiety, and creates direction. Suddenly, you're not wasting time on things that drain you. You're not scattering your energy across unimportant tasks. You're not reacting impulsively to every distraction. You're moving through your life with purpose, with intention, with a sense of direction that helps you stay grounded even in stressful times. Mastering your time also teaches you something valuable that most people never learn. You don't have to do everything alone. Delegation, collaboration, automation, asking for help. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who do everything. They're the ones who know what not to do. They invest their highest energy into their highest value tasks. And they find ways to minimize everything else, whether through tools, systems, or people who complement their strengths. Imagine a teacher named Priya who spent years doing everything manually, grading papers late into the night, preparing lesson plans from scratch, answering dozens of emails, handling administrative tasks. She felt burnt out constantly. But when she learned the principle of multiplying time, she began automating repetitive tasks with software, using templates for her lessons, batch processing her emails, and delegating certain responsibilities to student leaders. Suddenly she had more time for creativity, better engagement with her students, and more energy for her personal life. The same job, the same hours, but a completely different experience. And that's the surprising truth about time. It's not the hours you have, but the structure you create around those hours that determines your success. Your time becomes meaningful when you use it with awareness, with purpose, and with courage. When you stop drifting, when you stop delaying, when you stop hiding from your dreams, when you take ownership of your life one day at a time. As you begin stepping into this new relationship with time, you start noticing something subtle but life-changing. The more intentional you become, the more intentional life becomes toward you. Your opportunities shift, your environment shifts, the people you attract shift. Even the way others speak to you changes. It's almost as if life starts respecting you the moment you start respecting your time. And maybe that sounds dramatic, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. When you raise your standards, the world responds accordingly. When you take yourself seriously, others begin taking you seriously. When you walk with purpose, people feel that purpose in your presence. You're no longer the person who waits for life to happen. You're the person making life happen. You begin realizing that the most valuable moments of your life aren't always the big, dramatic changes. They're often the tiny decisions you make on an ordinary day. The decision to read instead of scroll, the decision to work for one more hour, the decision to wake up on time rather than hitting snooze, the decision to speak up when staying silent is easier, the decision to practice even when you're not in the mood. These small moments shape your identity far more than the big ones. Transformation isn't built from grand gestures. It's built from 1,000 small choices. Choices that seem insignificant in the moment but accumulate into something powerful over time. Think about a man named Aaron. He always wanted to write a novel, but for years he told himself he didn't have the time. The idea of writing a whole book felt overwhelming, so he did nothing. Until one day, he made a simple decision. He would write just 200 words a day. That's less than 10 minutes of writing. But he did it every single day, no excuses. Some days his writing was good, some days it was terrible. But he kept writing. 1 month passed, then 2, then 6, and eventually, without any drama, without any big announcement, without any burst of inspiration, Aaron finished his entire novel. Not because he had more time, but because he used the time he had. That's the magic of intentional effort. It compounds. When you understand this, you stop waiting for big moments to change your life. You stop hoping for motivation. You stop dreaming about a lucky break. Instead, you begin building the habits that quietly change the direction of your future. And with each repeated action, your confidence grows. You begin thinking, if I can do this every day, maybe I'm capable of more than I thought. And that belief is powerful, because every time you follow through on a promise you make to yourself, you strengthen your identity as someone who gets things done. Your inner dialogue begins to shift. Instead of saying, I wish I could, you start saying, I'm working on it. Instead of feeling intimidated by big goals, you start breaking them down into manageable steps. Instead of feeling lost, you start feeling guided. That shift in self-talk becomes one of the greatest assets you will ever build. Because once you trust yourself, once you believe in your ability to follow through, there is very little in life that can hold you back. Another transformation that happens as you master your time is that your distractions lose their power over you. You begin noticing how certain behaviors, scrolling, gossiping, comparing yourself to others, indulging in negative thoughts, drain your energy without giving anything back. And once you become aware of that, those distractions stop feeling pleasurable. They start feeling expensive. Not expensive in money, but expensive in time, expensive in peace, expensive in progress. And when you realize how costly these habits are, your mind naturally begins letting go of them. Not by force, not by discipline, but by clarity. You start protecting your focus like it's something sacred. Because in a world full of distractions, focus is rare. And anything rare is valuable. You won't want to waste it. You'll begin creating boundaries that once felt difficult, but now feel necessary. Boundaries with your phone, with people who drain you, with thoughts that weaken you, with habits that distract you. Boundaries don't restrict your life, they expand it. They open up mental space for creativity, productivity, and peace. They create room for the person you're becoming. And as your focus sharpens, you begin seeing possibilities you never noticed before. New ideas come to you more often. New opportunities appear. Solutions to old problems suddenly seem obvious. You feel mentally lighter, more capable, more confident. That's because a focused mind is far more powerful than a scattered one. Your mind is like light. Scattered light is soft, but concentrated light becomes a laser. It can cut through anything. Your mind works the same way. When your attention is fractured, progress is slow. But when your attention is concentrated, progress becomes exponential. Now imagine a woman named Zoe who always felt stuck in her career. She worked hard, but she wasn't moving forward. Her days felt repetitive and draining. Then she realized something important. She wasn't lacking talent. She was lacking focus. She was multitasking every day, switching between emails, tasks, conversations, and distractions. Her energy was scattered, so she changed her approach. She started dividing her day into deep focus blocks. During these blocks, she worked without interruptions, no notifications, no chatter, no multitasking. Within weeks, she began producing higher quality work. Her performance improved. Her boss noticed. She got new responsibilities, and eventually she was offered a promotion. Not because she became smarter, but because she became focused. Mastering your time teaches you that your focus is your greatest advantage in a distracted world. It teaches you that your attention is the currency of your success. It teaches you that life expands or shrinks based on how you use your minutes. And it teaches you that the quality of your days eventually becomes the quality of your life. As you continue mastering your time, something even deeper begins to unfold. You begin to understand yourself. You start discovering what energizes you and what drains you. You start learning how to manage your emotions, how to regulate your thoughts, how to break destructive patterns before they become habits. You begin building discipline not through force but through alignment. And you start feeling something rare, a sense of inner freedom. Freedom from procrastination, freedom from guilt, freedom from overwhelm, freedom from the belief that life is happening too fast for you to keep up. Instead, you feel aligned, grounded, present. You feel capable of shaping your future one decision at a time. And that's the true gift of mastering your time. Not just achieving more, but becoming more confident, more intentional, more aware, more fulfilled, more disciplined, more alive. As you continue mastering your time, another profound shift begins to unfold inside you. One that doesn't happen immediately, but reveals itself gradually. Like the sun rising over a quiet landscape, you start to become deeply aware of the value of your attention. Your attention is your life force. Where your attention goes, your life goes. And for the first time, you consciously choose where to place it. You stop giving your energy to things that don't add meaning, don't bring growth, and don't align with who you want to become. Instead, you start guarding your attention like something precious, because it is. Most people don't realize how much of their life they've given away simply because they weren't paying attention. Hours lost in scrolling, days lost in indecision, months lost in procrastination, years lost in comforting but directionless routines. But as you grow in awareness, your attention becomes sharper. You start to see the difference between what is urgent and what is irrelevant, between what demands your time and what deserves your time, between what drains you and what fulfills you. And once you recognize this difference, your decisions change. You choose conversations that enrich you instead of gossip that drains you. You choose habits that strengthen you instead of impulses that weaken you. You choose people who support your growth instead of people who anchor you to your past. You begin selecting your life with intention, one moment at a time. Imagine someone like Arya. She used to scroll on her phone for hours every evening. She didn't think much of it. It was her way of unwinding, her escape from stress. But over time, she felt increasingly disconnected from her goals. Her passions faded. Her focus weakened. She felt busy but not fulfilled. When she began mastering her time, she made one simple change. She replaced an hour of scrolling with an hour of learning something she always loved, interior design. Within months, her evenings felt different. Instead of feeling drained, she felt inspired. Instead of escaping her life, she felt like she was building it. And that shift came from a single change in attention. This is the secret that people who master their time discover. Time doesn't disappear. It moves wherever you direct it. Another important transformation happens when you start living with intention. Your days no longer feel like a blur. You begin remembering them. You begin feeling present in your own life. You notice things you never noticed before. The way morning light falls into your room. The feeling of calm you get after a productive hour. The satisfaction of crossing off a meaningful task. You begin appreciating your own effort, your own growth, your own journey. Presence is powerful because it slows time. When you are truly present, moments feel fuller. You experience them with clarity instead of rushing through them mindlessly. And the more present you become, the more you realize that time wasn't your enemy, distraction was. You start waking up differently. Instead of jumping into your day half aware, you pause. You breathe. You choose. You ask yourself, what kind of day do I want to live? What would make today meaningful? What action will move me closer to the life I want? These questions anchor you. They shape your mentality before the world tries to shape it for you. They give your day direction before chaos enters. And with this clarity, even the simplest routines feel purposeful. Your morning isn't just a series of tasks. It becomes a ritual of alignment. a way of checking in with yourself before you interact with the world. You begin creating small habits that support your identity. Journaling, meditation, reading, exercise, planning, reflection. These habits don't control your life. They empower it. They become your foundation. And once your foundation is strong, everything built on top of it becomes stronger too. As control over your time strengthens, your relationship with failure also transforms. Failure stops feeling like the end of something and starts feeling like part of the process. You begin seeing it as feedback instead of judgment, as correction instead of condemnation, as growth instead of shame. When you use your time intentionally, you don't fear mistakes because you know you're moving forward either way. Even a step in the wrong direction teaches you something valuable. Failure becomes data. It becomes information. It becomes a lesson that helps you adjust your path with more accuracy. Picture someone like Ryan. He tried starting a small online business 3 times and failed each time. For years, he believed he wasn't meant for entrepreneurship. But when he started managing his time intentionally, he realized something important. He didn't fail because he wasn't capable. He failed because he didn't have systems. He didn't have structure. He didn't have consistency. He worked in bursts, not in steady patterns. Once he developed a routine, planned his days, learned from past mistakes, and approached it with discipline rather than emotion, things changed. His 4th attempt succeeded, not because he suddenly became talented, but because he became consistent. Time mastery makes failure survivable. It makes success reproducible, and it makes growth inevitable. You also begin developing something many people spend their whole lives searching for: self-respect. Every time you honor your commitments to yourself, you build more of it. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you strengthen it. Every time you take responsibility for your hours, you deepen it. And as your self-respect grows, your standards rise. You stop tolerating things that don't serve you. You stop settling for situations that drain you. You stop participating in habits that delay you. You begin expecting more from your life and more from yourself. This shift is powerful because your standards shape your future. People don't rise to the level of their goals. They rise to the level of their standards. Goals motivate you, but standards transform you. And when your standards change, everything changes. Another beautiful transformation occurs when you begin trusting the process. Before mastering your time, you probably felt rushed, like everything needed to happen quickly or it wouldn't happen at all. But consistency teaches you patience. It shows you that big things take time. It shows you that slow progress is still progress. It shows you that habits matter more than intensity. And once you internalize this, impatience fades. Anxiety fades. Pressure fades. You develop a calm confidence, a steady pace, a quiet belief that as long as you show up consistently, the results will come. There is something peaceful about moving forward without rushing. Something empowering about doing small things that lead to big outcomes. Something fulfilling about trusting yourself enough to continue even when you don't see immediate results. Eventually, you look back and realize you've changed. Not just on the outside, not just in your productivity or your habits, but on the inside. You've become someone who values their life, someone who respects their future, someone who acts with intention and clarity instead of impulse and stress. And that version of you moves through the world differently. You become someone who can build anything: a skill, a career, a dream, a new identity. Not because you're extraordinary, but because you understand the extraordinary power of ordinary days. As you continue on this journey, something even more profound begins to shift within you: your relationship with your future self. Most people live disconnected from the person they will become. They act as if their future self is a stranger, someone far away, someone they don't need to think about today. But when you master your time, that distance disappears. You begin to feel a deep sense of responsibility toward your future self, not through pressure, but through genuine care. You begin making decisions not just for the moment, but for the person you will be weeks, months, and years from now. This is one of the most beautiful transformations in time mastery. You start living with a sense of continuity. You treat your future self like someone worth protecting, someone worth investing in, someone worth working for. Your decisions carry weight. Your habits become gifts. Your discipline becomes a form of love. And slowly, the way you see yourself changes. You're no longer a person who sacrifices long-term benefits for short-term comfort. You become someone who builds their future intentionally, one thoughtful choice at a time. Imagine someone like Daniel, a young man who always felt disconnected from his future. He lived spontaneously, reacting to whatever came his way. Sleepless nights, impulsive spending, chaotic routines. He believed he'd figure it out later. But later never came. His goals remained dreams. His potential sat untouched. Then one day he realized something painful. His future self was suffering because his present self wasn't leading. That realization shook him. It made him see that time isn't just something you use. It's something you accumulate. Every minute becomes part of your story. Every decision becomes part of your identity. When Daniel began honoring his time, he began honoring his future self. And that changed everything. When you start thinking this way, procrastination becomes less tempting. You begin asking yourself a powerful question. Will my future self thank me for this? And the moment you ask it, your priorities rearrange themselves. You stop postponing the things that matter. You stop ignoring responsibilities. You stop choosing comfort over progress. You realize that every time you delay something important, you are borrowing time from a version of you who hasn't even lived yet, and leaving them with the burden. That awareness alone can transform the rest of your life. Another shift that happens is that time begins to feel abundant instead of scarce. At first, this may sound strange because the number of hours in your day never changes. But your experience of time changes dramatically. When your life is chaotic, time feels fast. It slips away quickly, almost like water running through your fingers. But when your life is intentional, time feels slower. You notice more. You breathe deeper. You move with clarity. This psychological expansion of time comes from living with purpose. When you're present, focused, and aligned, hours feel rich and full instead of rushed and empty. This shift in perception also changes your emotional relationship with time. You stop fearing it. You stop fighting it. You stop feeling like you're racing against the clock. Instead, you begin cooperating with it, flowing with it, using it deliberately. You realize that time is not your enemy, it's your partner. And when you treat it with respect, it supports you in return. Many people don't realize this until later in life. That time is the currency of our existence, and how we spend it determines the quality of our experiences. But when you learn this lesson early, you gain an incredible advantage. You learn that joy doesn't come from speed, but from depth. You learn that progress doesn't come from pressure, but from consistency. You learn that fulfillment doesn't come from doing more, but from doing what matters. Another profound lesson that emerges along this journey is the power of silence. Not just external silence, but internal silence, the quiet space inside your mind where you can think, reflect, and process your life. Most people never experience silence because their minds are filled with noise, endless thoughts, anxieties, comparisons, doubts, mental chatter. But when you learn to manage your time, you create space for inner stillness. You create space to hear your own voice. You create space to understand what you truly want, what you truly feel, what you truly value. This silence is not empty. It is full of clarity, full of direction, full of intuition, full of ideas waiting to surface. When your mind is quiet, creativity flourishes, inspiration flows, solutions become obvious, decisions become easier. You stop reacting and start responding. This inner silence becomes a powerful tool for navigating your life. Think about someone like Ava. She worked a stressful job, juggled family responsibilities, and always felt mentally overloaded. Her mind never stopped. She lived in survival mode, constantly thinking about the next task. But when she began mastering her time, she scheduled small moments of silence, 10 minutes in the morning, a walk without her phone, a few minutes of deep breathing at night. These simple practices changed her life. Her anxiety decreased. Her thoughts became organized. Her decision-making became more grounded. She began understanding herself on a deeper level. And for the first time in years, she felt like she was living instead of merely existing. This is what time mastery ultimately gives you. Not just productivity, but presence. Not just accomplishment, but awareness. Not just efficiency, but meaning. You start seeing that every moment holds potential. Every day holds opportunities. Every hour is a chance to move closer to your dreams. You don't need to wait for the perfect circumstance. You don't need unlimited motivation. You don't need massive changes. You just need to begin, and then continue, steadily, intentionally, courageously. One of the most powerful realizations you gain is that small, consistent investments of time always outweigh large, inconsistent bursts. A person who practices a skill for 20 minutes a day will surpass someone who practices intensely once a month. A person who reads a few pages every day will become more knowledgeable than someone who reads one book in a year. A person who saves small amounts regularly will build more wealth than someone who waits for large amounts to appear. Consistency compounds, effort compounds, discipline compounds, and over time, these compounds shape a completely different life. Another deep transformation is the confidence that comes from being reliable, not to others, but to yourself. Most people are reliable for everyone except themselves. They show up for work. They show up for others' expectations. They show up for responsibilities, but they don't show up for their own dreams. They break promises to themselves without guilt. They delay their goals without regret. They ignore their potential without hesitation. But when you start honoring your time, you start honoring yourself. You become someone you can depend on. And that kind of self-dependability is a rare and powerful form of confidence. When you trust yourself to follow through, your entire life expands. And slowly, without force, without pressure, without dramatic declarations, you become someone different. Someone stronger. Someone clearer. Someone more capable. Someone who moves through the world with purpose instead of confusion. With calm instead of chaos. With discipline instead of doubt. You become the kind of person who turns intentions into reality. You begin to notice that as you evolve, the world around you responds in subtle ways. People start treating you differently, not because they changed, but because you changed. You carry yourself with a new kind of quiet, power, the kind that doesn't need to be announced, the kind that can be felt simply by the way you move through your day. You don't rush, but you also don't hesitate. You don't procrastinate, but you don't panic either. You simply act with a calm confidence that comes from knowing that your time is being used with intention. There's a point in every journey where discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like alignment. You wake up not because you force yourself, but because the day feels like an opportunity. You sit down to work not because you fear falling behind, but because you're excited to move forward. You take care of your health not because you're afraid of decline, but because it feels good to live with energy. This kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through hundreds of decisions, small, simple, honest decisions, compounded over time. And then, without realizing it, you start inspiring people. Not through lectures, not through advice, not through loud declarations, but through your example. People notice the way you handle challenges, the way you organize your life, the way you stay focused, the way your days seem structured but not stressful. They notice the way you protect your peace, the way you make time for growth, the way you keep promises to yourself. Without saying a word, you become a reminder of what's possible when someone decides to take ownership of their life. Your relationships change too. You begin valuing depth over convenience. You seek conversations that challenge you, not distract you. You surround yourself with people who want to grow, people who understand responsibility, people who respect their own time and yours. And slowly you realize something powerful. The people in your life become a reflection of the standards you hold for yourself. As you continue mastering your time, you develop a deeper understanding of one of life's most overlooked truths. Your energy, not your hours, determines your productivity. You can have 8 free hours and achieve nothing if your energy is low. And you can have 1 focused hour and make more progress than you did in the last week. Once you realize this, you stop trying to manage time and start learning to manage energy. You start paying attention to what drains you, what fuels you, what inspires you, what distracts you. You begin noticing patterns. Certain tasks energize you. Certain environments elevate you. Certain people uplift you, while others exhaust you completely. With this awareness, you begin designing your days around energy instead of time. You tackle your most important work when your mind is strongest. You take breaks before burnout. You rest without guilt. You protect your mental freshness because you understand it's the vehicle through which your best work emerges. Imagine someone like Elena. She always believed that the key to success was working non-stop, pushing through exhaustion, sacrificing sleep and staying busy. But she was always tired, always stressed, always one step behind. When she learned to manage her energy instead of her hours, things changed dramatically. She began sleeping longer, taking short mindful breaks, eating better, and scheduling focus work when her mind was sharpest. Amazingly, she achieved more in 5 energized hours than she once did in 12 tired ones. Her life didn't just become more productive, it became more sustainable. This is one of the most liberating realizations you'll ever experience. You don't need more time. You need better energy. And energy is something you can cultivate, protect, and elevate. Once you integrate this lesson, you stop forcing yourself through the day. You begin flowing with it. Your productivity becomes natural. Your creativity increases. You're no longer surviving through your tasks. You're moving through them with clarity and strength. And at a certain point, you start seeing time mastery as something much bigger than productivity. It becomes a philosophy of living, a way of honoring the one life you have, a way of showing respect to your future, your potential, and your purpose. You begin realizing that the real treasure in life is not time, but who you become by choosing how to use it. You're not just managing minutes, you're shaping your destiny. You're not just repeating habits, you're rewriting who you are. You're not just checking tasks, you're building a future. And slowly, you realize that time mastery isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what matters. Consistently, intentionally, courageously. As you continue walking this path of mastering your time, you reach a point where something inside you shifts so profoundly that you might not even recognize the old version of yourself anymore. The person who used to delay, the person who used to doubt, the person who used to feel overwhelmed. That person begins to fade, not because they were weak or incapable, but because they didn't yet understand how powerful their choices could be. Now, with clarity guiding you, you start living in a way that feels aligned with your higher self, your true self, the self you were always capable of becoming. One of the most revealing parts of this transformation is understanding how much life changes when you begin living intentionally. You no longer drift from task to task hoping that productivity will happen by accident. You create it. You design it. You shape it through thoughtful routines, consistent habits, and small moments of courage. Each day becomes a canvas, and instead of scribbling randomly, you begin painting with purpose. Even when the strokes are imperfect, they still contribute to a bigger picture, one that reflects your growth, your discipline, and your commitment to yourself. You also begin noticing how much more satisfying life becomes when your actions align with your values. There's a unique peace that comes from knowing you're living in integrity with your goals. You're no longer living on autopilot, reacting without thinking, following impulses without intention. Instead, you pause, you reflect, you choose. These small pauses become powerful. They interrupt old patterns. They open new possibilities. They give you space to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. And in that space, you discover who you truly are. One of the most important changes you'll experience is your new relationship with discomfort. In the past, discomfort made you avoid things. Now, discomfort makes you curious. Instead of running away from challenges, you lean into them. You treat discomfort as information, as a signal that you're stepping into growth, stepping into expansion, stepping into your next level. You realize that discomfort is not your enemy. It's your evolution knocking. And every time you answer that call, you become stronger. Take someone like Marcus. He always avoided confrontation. At work, he'd stay silent even when he disagreed. In his personal life, he'd agree to things he didn't want. He feared conflict, feared judgment, feared disappointing others. But as he learned to master his time, he began strengthening a different muscle, courage. One day, instead of staying silent in a meeting, he shared an idea. His voice shook, his heart raced, but he spoke. And that one small moment became a turning point. He realized that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act despite it. Today, Marcus leads a team. The man who once avoided discomfort now walks into it with confidence. This transformation began not with a dramatic decision, but with a single moment of choosing growth over fear. As you evolve, you also begin developing a sharper sense of self-awareness. You start noticing your thoughts, your patterns, your emotions with a new level of clarity. You begin catching the moments when you try to sabotage your own progress. You notice the excuses your mind tries to create. I'll start later. I don't feel ready. This is too hard. I'm not good enough. But now, instead of believing those thoughts, you observe them. You separate them from your identity. You recognize that thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. And you decide which ones to accept. This awareness becomes a superpower. It prevents you from falling into old habits. It helps you stay connected to your goals, even when your mind tries to pull you away. It creates a psychological distance between who you are and what you feel in the moment. And in that distance, you find power. The power to choose your actions intentionally, not emotionally. As time mastery deepens, you inevitably develop a new relationship with goals. Goals stop being vague dreams floating somewhere in the future. They become roadmaps. You break them into smaller steps. You make them visible. You measure your progress. You celebrate small wins. You track your patterns. You make adjustments. You learn from mistakes instead of giving up because of them. Your goals become your compass, and your habits become your vehicle. But the most surprising part of this entire journey is the way your identity shifts without you even noticing it. At first, you push yourself to develop discipline. Then slowly, discipline becomes your norm. At first, you have to remind yourself to stay consistent. Then, consistency becomes automatic. At first, it feels like you're forcing yourself to change. Then, it feels like you're simply becoming who you were always meant to be. There's something incredibly empowering about waking up every day, knowing that who you are is no longer an accident. You are sculpting yourself. You are designing your life. You are shaping your destiny through the choices you make with your time. And as this sense of control grows, your confidence grows with it. You stop doubting your ability to reach your dreams. You stop feeling like life is happening to you. You start seeing that life is responding to you, to your habits, your clarity, your actions. You also begin understanding that real success is not built in grand moments but in quiet hours when no one is watching. Success is built in early mornings, in focused evenings, in small consistent actions taken day after day. It's built in moments when you choose discipline over comfort, purpose over pleasure, alignment over ease. And when you start living this way, you become unstoppable, not because you're perfect, but because you're relentless. Another subtle but powerful shift is how you begin viewing challenges. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, you see them as stepping stones. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen your character, upgrade your skills, and deepen your resilience. You begin appreciating difficulty because you understand that ease never created excellence. Growth comes from pressure. Clarity comes from struggle. Strength comes from resistance. And the more challenges you overcome, the more capable you become. Eventually, you reach a point where your old life, the life of rushing, procrastinating, drifting, and reacting, feels like a distant memory. You've stepped into a new version of yourself, one who moves with intention, who respects their time, who respects their future, who respects their own potential. And from here forward, everything changes. There comes a moment on this path when you begin to understand that mastering your time isn't really about schedules or apps or productivity techniques. Those tools help, yes, but they are not the heart of transformation. The heart of transformation is identity. Time mastery is self-mastery. When you learn to direct your attention, your actions, your energy, and your focus, you are learning to direct yourself. And once you understand how to lead yourself, everything else in life becomes infinitely easier. You stop relying on motivation because you realize motivation is temporary. It comes and goes like the weather. Some days it lifts you up. Other days you can't find it at all. But discipline is stable. Discipline is reliable. Discipline is the foundation you build when you stop negotiating with excuses. It becomes the quiet force that carries you through days when you don't feel inspired. And something strange happens. The more disciplined you become, the more free you feel. You gain freedom from procrastination, freedom from indecision, freedom from regret. That's the paradox. Discipline doesn't restrict your life, it unlocks it. You begin noticing that the things that once felt difficult now feel natural. Waking up at a consistent time becomes easy. Finishing your tasks feels rewarding instead of exhausting. Starting your day with intention becomes automatic. You no longer push yourself through life, you glide. And this isn't because life suddenly became easier. It's because you became stronger. You built systems. You built routines. You built habits that quiet the chaos and amplify your potential. And as you strengthen internally, you begin choosing differently. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose progress over perfection. You choose consistency over intensity. You choose responsibility over excuses. You choose your future self over your comfort zone. You no longer chase quick wins or shortcuts. You no longer seek validation from others. You no longer measure your worth by how busy you are. Instead, you measure your life by how aligned you feel, by how intentionally you live, by how much peace you carry inside. At this stage of your journey, distractions lose their power, not because they disappear, they will always exist, but because you outgrow them. You no longer crave constant entertainment. You no longer feel the urge to check your phone every few minutes. You no longer fall into hours of mindless scrolling. You begin to crave depth. You begin to crave purpose. You begin to crave activities that make you feel alive, not numb. And when you experience this shift, it feels like your mind has finally opened its eyes after years of being half asleep. Consider someone like Sophia. She used to live in a cycle of distraction. Social media, YouTube, podcasts, constant noise. She couldn't be alone with her thoughts. Silence made her anxious. But as she learned to master her time, she slowly reduced her digital noise. At first it felt strange, uncomfortable, but then something beautiful happened. Her creativity returned. Her curiosity returned. Her intuition grew stronger. She began having ideas again, ideas she hadn't felt in years. She felt connected to herself. The silence that once scared her became her sanctuary. And with that clarity, she discovered passions she had forgotten. That's what time mastery gives you, a doorway back to your truest self. Another realization emerges when you begin structuring your life with intention. You understand the enormous power of planning. Not rigid planning that suffocates your day, but thoughtful planning that gives your day shape. A simple plan each morning, just a few minutes of deciding what truly matters, can turn an entire chaotic day into a purposeful one. You stop wasting time figuring out what to do next. You stop drifting. You start directing. And the more you plan, the more accountable you become. You can't lie to yourself anymore. If you plan to write for 30 minutes, you write. If you plan to exercise, you exercise. If you plan to study, you study. You begin building a reputation with yourself. And that self-reputation becomes more important than the opinions of others. You realize that self-trust, the trust you build through action, is the foundation of self-confidence. You don't need compliments. You don't need approval. You know who you are because you see what you do. Slowly you reach a place where your days feel meaningful. Not heroic, not extraordinary, just meaningful. There is a quiet satisfaction in finishing what you start, in following through on your promises, in using your time with intention, in going to bed knowing you didn't waste the day, in waking up knowing you're moving closer to your goals. That feeling, the feeling of alignment, is one of the most beautiful feelings a person can ever experience. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's calm, steady, deep. Then comes one of the biggest lessons of all. Your time is your life. When you give your time away carelessly, you are giving pieces of your life away. When you waste your hours, you waste your potential. But when you protect your hours, when you guard your focus, when you honor your schedule, you begin honoring your whole existence. You stop treating your life like something cheap and start treating it like something sacred. Your environment shifts too. You begin creating a space that supports your goals. A tidy desk, a clean room, a quiet corner where ideas flow easily. You begin surrounding yourself with people whose presence feels like fuel, rather than friction. You begin choosing conversations that stimulate you instead of drain you. You begin seeking advice from people who live the way you want to live. And you begin saying no, not with guilt, but with clarity. Every no becomes a yes to your future. At this point, you look back and realize that the transformation wasn't sudden. It wasn't a single breakthrough or a single moment of brilliance. It was built slowly through time, ironically, through mastering the very thing you once believed you didn't have enough of. You realize that time was never the problem. The problem was alignment. The problem was clarity. The problem was believing that change required perfection instead of consistency. Now you understand. Life isn't changed by dramatic decisions. Life is changed by consistent devotion. By simple habits, by tiny choices, by honoring your minutes, by respecting your future, by acting today, not tomorrow, by showing up even on the days you don't feel like it. You become someone who doesn't chase time, you lead it. And then, something incredible begins to happen. Something so subtle at first that you barely notice it, yet so powerful that it reshapes your entire reality. You start to feel in tune with your life. Not ahead, not behind, but aligned. You stop running from the day, and you stop chasing it too. Instead, you begin moving with it, almost like you're walking beside your own potential, watching yourself grow a little more each time you choose intention over impulse. This alignment changes the way you think. You stop believing that success is something other people get. You stop seeing discipline as something you struggle with. You stop assuming that the life you want is out of reach. Instead, you begin recognizing a truth that was always there, hidden beneath the noise. You are capable of far more than you've ever allowed yourself to believe. You always were. Your potential was never gone. It was simply buried under layers of distraction, fear, and unstructured days. And now that you've started peeling those layers back, your real self is emerging. You notice it in the small things first. The way you speak to yourself becomes kinder. The way you correct yourself becomes gentler, more patient. The way you evaluate your progress becomes more mature. You stop demanding perfection. You stop feeling disappointed in yourself for being human. You start treating your growth like a long-term relationship instead of a short-term task. And because you treat yourself better, you improve faster, not through pressure, but through respect. There's a moment, one quiet afternoon, or maybe late at night, when it hits you, you are not the person you used to be. The one who struggled to start. The one who lived in cycles of procrastination. The one who let fear make choices. That person didn't fail. They just didn't have the tools. But now you do. And the more you use those tools, the more you see life through a different lens. You begin valuing every minute because you understand that each minute is a building block for the future you're creating. You also begin noticing how your time shapes your identity. When you regularly choose growth, you start identifying as someone who grows. When you regularly choose discipline, you start seeing yourself as disciplined. When you consistently take small steps, You begin believing you can take bigger ones. This identity shift is one of the most powerful changes a person can experience. It removes the invisible ceiling you once lived under. It dismantles the beliefs that kept you small. It turns "I hope I can" into "I know I will." And with this new identity, you begin taking bigger risks, not reckless risks, but intentional ones. You apply for the job you once thought was out of reach. You start the project you always postponed. You learn the skill you kept pushing aside. You speak up when you used to stay silent. You share your ideas without waiting for permission. You take the opportunities that your old self would have walked past. And each time you stretch, each time you step into something slightly uncomfortable, you grow a bit more into the person you're becoming. This growth begins affecting your emotional world as well. You become less reactive, less impatient, less overwhelmed by small inconveniences. Instead of spiraling when things go wrong, you breathe, you step back, you analyze, and you respond with clarity. You stop letting temporary emotions make permanent decisions. You stop letting stress control the direction of your day. You begin leading with intention, even in the moments when life feels messy. That's what real mastery looks like. Not perfection, but stability. Think about someone like Hannah. For years, she struggled with emotional burnout. Every time something unexpected happened, she would lose hours or even days trying to recover mentally. But when she began managing her time intentionally, she also became more emotionally grounded. She learned how to pause before reacting. She created structure in her days. She built small relaxation rituals. She planned her priorities so stress wouldn't constantly derail her. Eventually, she realized that emotional balance isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through habits, boundaries, and clarity. And once she built it, her entire life opened up in ways she never imagined. This is the beauty of mastering your time. It doesn't just upgrade your schedule. It upgrades your mind. It strengthens your resilience. It sharpens your awareness. It increases your emotional bandwidth. It gives you room to breathe, to think, to dream, to rest, to create. You begin feeling like you have more space inside your head, more silence, more clarity, more control. And that internal spaciousness becomes the birthplace of your best ideas, your best solutions, your best actions. And slowly, quietly, you start realizing something profound. The life you want is not built in the future. It is built now, in the decisions you make today, in the habits you practice today, in the minutes you use today. The future isn't some distant force waiting to happen to you. The future is your present repeated over time. And when you understand this, you stop waiting for someday. You begin acting today. This is where the real transformation begins. When today matters to you, when this moment matters, when the next hour matters, when you understand deeply that the person you want to become is shaped by what you do right now, not by what you promise yourself you'll do later. And once that realization fully settles into your heart, your life shifts in ways you can feel, not just see. You begin to notice that the more intentionally you live, the more life responds with clarity. Decisions that once felt confusing now feel obvious. Choices that used to drain you now feel easy to decline. You start trusting your intuition because you finally have the mental space to hear it. You start recognizing what truly matters because the noise in your life has quieted enough for priorities to reveal themselves. And as this clarity grows, you realize something that almost feels like a secret. Most of your stress didn't come from having too much to do. It came from not knowing what to do first. It came from scattered attention, divided focus, unfinished tasks lingering in the back of your mind like shadows. But now, with structure guiding your days, those shadows fade. You create lists not to overwhelm yourself, but to free your mind. You prioritize not to pressure yourself, but to give direction. You finish what you start because you no longer allow a task to steal your peace by staying incomplete. This ability to finish becomes one of the strongest pillars of your new identity. Finishing gives you confidence. Finishing gives you momentum. Finishing gives you power. Each completed task becomes proof that you can rely on yourself, that you follow through, that you're not the person who leaves things undone anymore. Your unfinished projects no longer define you. Your completed ones do. And as you finish more, you begin dreaming bigger. You start believing that long-term goals are achievable. You stop fearing big plans because you understand how to break them down into small, doable steps. You stop waiting for motivation because you know how to create progress through consistency. You stop imagining your dream life and start building it, one intentional block of time at a time. This shift gives your life a new rhythm, a rhythm of purpose. You wake up with clarity, move through your day with direction, and end your night with peace. The days no longer blend into each other in a blur of chaos. They become chapters of your personal evolution. Every day teaches you something. Every challenge strengthens something. Every action builds something. And then you encounter a deeper truth, one only revealed to those who walk this path long enough. Time mastery is emotional mastery. It's not just about managing hours. It's about managing the emotions that rise inside those hours. The resistance, the boredom, the fear, the self-doubt, the fatigue, the frustration, the subconscious urge to escape, avoid, or delay. When you learn to handle your emotions with grace, your productivity becomes limitless. You stop running from difficult tasks because the emotions they trigger no longer control you. You no longer crumble under pressure because you know how to breathe through it. You no longer abandon your goals after a bad day because you understand that emotions pass, but your future remains. This emotional strength becomes your anchor. You become more grounded, more adaptable, more steady. Chaos loses its ability to overwhelm you. Unexpected situations stop derailing your entire day. Instead of falling apart, you adjust. Instead of stressing, you strategize. Instead of complaining, you take action. And that is the true mark of mastery. Not that everything goes perfectly, but that nothing can break your momentum anymore. You begin to see challenges as part of the process. Delays no longer disappoint you. Mistakes no longer discourage you. Hard days no longer define you. Instead, you learn how to navigate them with patience and wisdom. You understand that growth is not linear, that progress is not always visible, that consistency is not always glamorous. And still, you show up, because you know that showing up is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. As this transformation continues, something profound begins to bloom within you. Self-respect. Not the shallow kind that relies on external validation, but the deep, quiet kind that comes from knowing you honor your commitments. You respect yourself because your actions reflect your values. You respect yourself because you protect your time. You respect yourself because you no longer ignore your goals. This self-respect changes the way you speak, walk, decide, and behave. It becomes part of your identity. And once you earn your own respect, you stop accepting anything in life that diminishes it. You begin creating boundaries that once felt impossible to set. You say no without guilt, because you finally understand that every yes is a commitment of your life's most precious currency, your time, and you're no longer willing to give it away carelessly. You stop overcommitting. You stop allowing others' urgency to dictate your schedule. You stop letting people pull you away from your goals. You finally build the life you've been trying to protect inside your mind for so long. And as you strengthen your boundaries, your relationships improve. You attract people who value your growth. You inspire others to rise with you. You become someone whose presence elevates the environment, someone who brings order instead of chaos, clarity instead of confusion, purpose instead of passivity. People begin to trust you, not because you tell them who you are, but because your actions make it undeniable. Then comes the most beautiful realization of all. Mastering your time has made your life feel richer. Not because you do more, but because you experience more. You're present, engaged, awake, alive. Your mind is no longer buried under stress. Your heart is no longer weighed down by regret. Your days feel meaningful, even if they're simple. You find joy in small moments. You find peace in structure. You find pride in consistency. You find fulfillment in progress. And at the peak of this journey, quietly, without fanfare, you understand the truth that people spend their whole lives chasing. Your time is your life. Your time is your power. And now, your time is truly yours. And now, as you stand in this new version of yourself, you begin to feel something you may not have felt in a long time, or perhaps ever. Control. Not control over the world, not control over circumstances, not control over everything that happens around you, but control over your response, your direction, your energy, your decisions. You realize that life doesn't need to be predictable for you to feel grounded. You don't need certainty to move forward. You don't need perfect conditions to begin. Because the power you feel isn't coming from the outside. It's coming from within you. This inner control creates a quiet confidence. Not loud, not boastful, not showy, but steady, calm, and unshakable. You carry it in the way you enter a room, in the way you choose your words, in the way you make decisions without overthinking, in the way you protect your time without apology. People sense it in you. They notice the difference even before you speak. And it's not because you're doing more. It's because you're becoming more. You start moving through life with a certain grace, a certain rhythm. When challenges arise, you don't collapse. You adapt. When opportunities appear, you don't hesitate. You evaluate and act. When life becomes overwhelming, you don't drown in it. You reorganize, reassess, and continue forward. You've learned that progress doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence, and you've developed that persistence drop by drop, day by day, choice by choice. Your relationship with time becomes so different than before that it almost feels like you're living in a new dimension. Time no longer slips away from you unnoticed. Time no longer feels insufficient. Time no longer controls you. You control how it flows through your hands. Every minute has meaning because you give it meaning. Even your rest is intentional. Even your breaks have purpose. You no longer rest as an escape. You rest as a strategy. You no longer work out of panic. You work out of clarity. And in this new dimension, you discover something beautiful. The more intentionally you live, the more your world expands. Opportunities you never saw before begin to appear. Ideas that once felt impossible now feel achievable. Dreams that once intimidated, you now feel like destinations you can reach with patience and consistency. Your future stops feeling like a mystery and starts feeling like a map you are drawing with every choice. But perhaps the most profound transformation happens in the way you see yourself. You stop identifying with your past. You stop judging yourself by old mistakes. You stop believing the narrative of who you used to be. You begin seeing yourself as someone capable, someone disciplined, someone focused, someone worthy of big goals and bigger dreams. When you look in the mirror, you no longer see potential wasted. You see potential awakened. This new self-image becomes your internal compass. It guides your behavior, your habits, your decisions, your standards. You refuse to shrink back into old patterns because they no longer match who you are. You refuse to hand your time away cheaply because you finally understand its value. You refuse to settle for a life that doesn't excite you because you know deeply that you are capable of building one that does. And the people around you begin to see these changes too. They notice the ambition in your eyes, the discipline in your actions, the peace in your presence. Some will admire it. Some will be inspired by it. Some may even feel threatened by it, because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. But none of that affects you anymore. You're no longer living to fit in. You're living to rise. You begin walking toward your future with intention, and with every step, the path becomes clearer. You no longer need someone to give you permission. You no longer need validation. You no longer need external motivation. You've built something far more powerful, internal momentum. And momentum, once built, becomes your greatest ally. It carries you through days of doubt. It lifts you through moments of hesitation. It pushes you gently forward even when you move slowly. Momentum keeps you alive inside your own dreams. And by now you realize something extraordinary. Mastering your time has not just changed your schedule, it has changed your spirit. You feel more alive than before, more present, more aware, more connected to the unfolding of your own life. You feel a sense of ownership, a sense of authorship. You are no longer a passenger in your story. You are the narrator, the builder, the architect, the one who chooses the direction, the pace, the meaning. You understand now that a meaningful life is not created by chance. It is created by choice, by choosing what deserves your energy, by choosing what gets your attention, by choosing what aligns with your future, and most importantly, by choosing yourself, again and again, day after day, even when it's hard, even when it's imperfect, even when the world pulls you in 100 different directions. And as this truth settles into your heart, you begin to realize you haven't just mastered time, you've mastered possibility. And now, as you move deeper into this new relationship with your time, you uncover one of the most empowering realizations of all. Everything you desire, everything you dream of, everything you envision for your life, is built through tiny moments of choice. Not grand transformations, not sudden breakthroughs, but small, steady decisions that accumulate quietly until one day you look around and realize you've created a life that once felt impossible. You begin to understand that the life you want doesn't require a different world. It requires a different you, a more intentional you, a more disciplined you, a more patient you, a version of you who understands that mastery isn't created by intensity. Mastery is created by consistency. That success isn't determined by how fast you move, but by how often you continue. That becoming your best self isn't a dramatic event, it's a daily practice. And the deeper this truth settles into you, the more you begin embracing something powerful. Patience. Not passive patience that waits for life to change on its own, but intentional patience, the kind that takes action today while trusting the process for tomorrow. You stop demanding immediate results. You stop expecting overnight transformation. You stop comparing your timeline to others. Instead, you trust the path you're walking. You trust your pace. You trust your effort. You trust yourself. This patience becomes a soft strength inside you. A strength that quiets your anxiety. A strength that slows your mind when it begins to race. A strength that whispers, You are moving forward, even if you don't see it yet. And that whisper becomes a guiding force, one that keeps you steady, one that keeps you grounded, one that keeps you consistent. You begin to see your goals differently now. They no longer intimidate you, they inspire you. They no longer feel distant, they feel reachable. They no longer sit in the realm of imagination. They sit in the realm of planning, effort, and time. All things you now know how to manage. And because of that, your goals stop feeling like dreams and begin feeling like destinations. This shift gives you an incredible sense of direction. You're no longer wandering through your days hoping that things will improve. You're walking with purpose. You're shaping your hours with wisdom. You're treating your minutes like stepping stones, each one leading you closer to your future. Even on slow days, even on difficult days, even on imperfect days, you're still moving forward because you've learned that progress is not a straight line, but a continuous motion. And then life presents you with a new test, the kind that always arrives when you begin to grow. Distractions disguised as opportunities, invitations that look exciting but lead nowhere, obligations that seem harmless but drain your energy, people who want your time but don't respect your goals. This is where your transformation reveals its true strength. Because now you don't say yes automatically. Now you don't move without thinking. Now you don't bend just to please others. You pause. You evaluate. You ask yourself, does this align with the future I'm building? And if the answer is no, you say no, clearly, confidently, gracefully. This ability to say no becomes one of your most powerful tools. It protects your time. It protects your energy. It protects your focus. And most importantly, it protects the life you're creating. You begin to understand that every yes must be earned, and your yes is no longer cheap. This clarity creates space for something beautiful, a sense of inner freedom. A freedom from pressure, a freedom from chaos, a freedom from the expectations of others. You no longer carry the weight of trying to be everything for everyone. You no longer stretch yourself thin trying to meet every request. Instead, you honor your limits. You respect your bandwidth. You choose quality over quantity in how you live, how you work, how you show up. As you continue mastering your time, the structure you've built around your days becomes a source of serenity rather than restriction. You find peace in routines. You find focus in planning. You find strength in discipline. You find joy in progress. What once felt like effort now feels like alignment. What once felt like struggle now feels like flow. And you realize something extraordinary. You've stepped into a version of yourself that your past self would barely recognize. The tired you, the scattered you, the overwhelmed you, the distracted you, the procrastinating you. They walk behind you now, not as shameful memories but as reminders of how far you've come. You no longer resent who you were. You honor them because they carried you to this point. They endured. They survived. They tried. They hoped. And when they didn't know how to change, they kept going until you, the new you, emerged. This journey, this transformation, this evolution, it has made you stronger, wiser, calmer, clearer. It has taught you how to lead your life instead of reacting to it. It has shown you that time, once feared as something slipping away, can become your closest ally when you learn to master it. And now, as the final pieces of this journey begin to settle into your heart, a quiet truth rises like a sunrise inside you. You are capable of creating a life you are proud of. Every day, every hour, every moment. You have everything you need inside you. The clarity, the discipline, the strength, the patience, the vision. You've built it piece by piece. You've earned it through consistency. You've proven it through action. You've lived it through time. And now, you are ready to step fully into the life waiting for you. And now, as you move closer to the end of this journey, something deeper begins to awaken inside you. Something that feels less like a lesson and more like a revelation. You begin to understand that time mastery is not just about creating structure around your life. It's about creating meaning within it. It's about recognizing that every moment holds a seed of growth, a seed of clarity, a seed of possibility, and that with intention, even the smallest moment can transform your life. You start noticing beauty where you once saw routine. You find purpose in tasks you once rushed through. You discover gratitude for moments that once felt insignificant. Time itself becomes richer because you have become richer inside. This shift doesn't just change how you work. It changes how you experience being alive. You begin savoring moments instead of rushing through them. The taste of your morning coffee, the quiet sound of your footsteps, the softness of early light through your window. These small slices of time, the ones you used to overlook, suddenly feel like gifts. Not because they're rare, but because you're finally present enough to notice them. Presence becomes your new wealth. And with presence comes a surprising stillness and a calm that doesn't depend on perfect circumstances. Even when the world around you feels chaotic, even when your schedule is full, even when unexpected challenges appear, this inner calm stays with you. Because your life is no longer built on pressure, it's built on intention. You trust yourself. You trust your process. You trust your ability to adjust without losing direction. This calm becomes your compass. It guides you through conversations, through decisions, through work, through relationships. It keeps you grounded in what matters. It reminds you not to rush through your life on autopilot. It teaches you how to live instead of merely exist, and slowly without force, you begin embodying a truth that few people ever fully realize. How you use your time is how you love your life. You show love through focus. You show love through presence. You show love through consistency. You show love through boundaries. You show love through choosing what nourishes your future. Every minute becomes an expression of how much you value yourself. You start building a lifestyle that supports the person you are becoming. Your environment changes, cleaner, calmer, more intentional. Your relationships shift, deeper, more aligned, more meaningful. Your routines strengthen, not out of obligation, but out of devotion to your own evolution. Every part of your life begins reflecting your growth. And then comes one of the greatest realizations of this entire journey. Your life doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. It doesn't need to be dramatic to be meaningful. It doesn't need to be extraordinary to be beautiful. What makes a life powerful is the intention behind it. The way you choose your hours. The way you honor your commitments. The way you show up for yourself day after day. The way you forgive yourself when you fall, then get back up and continue forward. You understand now that time mastery isn't about squeezing productivity out of every second. It's about creating a life where every second has a place. A life where there is room for growth, room for rest, room for dreams, room for becoming. You no longer chase balance, you create it. You no longer chase purpose, you embody it. You no longer chase time, you command it with clarity. And as you continue walking forward with this deeper awareness, you begin to notice something incredible. You're not just managing your time anymore. You're shaping your destiny. You're crafting a life that reflects your values, your goals, your dreams, your heart. You're living with intention, with presence, with respect for the limited but powerful resource that every human shares, the gift of time. And that's when the truth finally settles gently, completely, beautifully into your bones. You have become the architect of your life, the steward of your hours, the guardian of your focus, the leader of your future. You are no longer the person who feared time slipping away. You are the person who steps boldly into each moment and says, I choose how this becomes part of my story. And that is mastery, not of time, but of self. And now, as this journey comes to a close, take a deep breath and let everything settle inside you. Not as ideas, not as information, but as truth. You've walked through awareness, through resistance, through clarity, through discipline. You've seen what happens when a person decides to honor their time, their energy, their goals, and their future. You've seen what becomes possible when someone stops running from life and starts walking toward it with intention. You've grown, you've shifted, you've awakened, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. You learned that mastery isn't an event, it's a choice you make each day. A quiet, steady, courageous choice to use your time with purpose instead of fear, with direction instead of drift, with presence instead of distraction. And now you carry something with you that cannot be taken away. A deeper understanding of your own power. You understand that every minute holds meaning. You understand that every small action compounds. You understand that your future is shaped not by chance, but by choice.